When people ask me what's the craziest thing I've seen in prison or circumstance or situation that I was around in prison, there's a few stories, but I tell this one because it doesn't necessarily include violence, and it shows you how twisted prison can be and why you should never want to go to a place like that. It's basically what happened, and of course I'll change names, etc. Out of respect for anybody, you know what I'm saying? But I find it important to educate in this moment why you shouldn't go to prison, right? So to put it in short, young man had came up there to Sussex too. By this time, I had been down a few years, and I could tell when he came into the dorm, he had not been locked up anywhere, probably but the jail. He didn't know what was going on. He was green. And if I could see that, other guys could see that. And what happens in that environment, a couple of things. Sometimes you get left alone where I was at. Sometimes the gang members are going to approach you to see, you know, what you down with, what you rep, if they see tattoos, etc. And then sometimes the old heads that's into certain things, and not just the old heads, it could be anybody that's into certain things, they gonna approach you and try to manipulate you so they can get you in their pocket and eventually get some favors from you. That's what happens. People don't talk about this stuff. And again, it doesn't happen for everybody, different systems, different situations, but I'm just saying this is what was happening in this moment to this young man. Because while he sat his bag down and came back out of his cell just to see what was going on in the environment, asked the CO some questions because obviously he had never been here before. One of the old heads that was into no good, was known to have several relationships and even been known to do some pimping and pandering back there, believe it or not, because that's something crazy that happens in the system sometimes. He approached this young man, and it was like clockwork. Not even 30 minutes later, I seen this young man, and so did everybody else because the dorms were so big, with soups in his hand. He was smoking rolled up in the corner. That's tobacco. Now the problem is this: he has never went to commissary, so that means somebody had given him this stuff, and who had given him this stuff was the older gentleman that was down on him for reasons he probably didn't know about. Well, over time, it went from the young man having a couple of soups to eat every night and being happy about it and thinking he met a new friend, to sitting down and making meals with the older gentleman. Eventually, over time, they would move in to the cell together. Happens in prison, y'all. Again, everybody doesn't do the same things. I want to be clear. There's a lot of stigma when it comes to certain things. To each his own. Everybody's preference is everybody's preference. But it does happen back there. It does. And it's not uncommon to see two men move into the cell with one another, you know, if they're in a relationship. And so this young man moved into the cell with this older guy. All this probably happened in the course of 3 weeks. Because the older gentleman, he had some influence on the compound, so it was easy for him to get some cell changes done with the COs, etc. Around this time, they had passed a rule up there where you could put your pictures of your family members and loved ones on the wall. This was a big thing. May seem so small to y'all if you've never been to prison, but to be able to put pictures of your loved ones on the wall, that is amazing. That's fire, and it's needed. You need sometimes to be able to get up, see a picture of your mom or your child or whatever, and be motivated to get through the day. So everybody was excited, and as we found out the story from one of the young man's homeboys later on, because we want to know what happened. What happened was the young man was putting his pictures up on the wall, and the older gentleman seen a picture of somebody that looked familiar, and he asked the young man that he was in a relationship with, he said, "Hey, who is that?" The young man said, "Oh, that's my mother." Old head, being manipulative and all that, you know what I'm saying? I guess he was trying to get in with his mom at the same time. I don't know, but he was like, "Man, let me talk to her one time. I think I know her, you know what I'm saying, such and such." So evidently the young man said, "Cool, you might do da-da-da." Now I want to tell you this: the young man was about 22 years old, 23 maybe, probably closer to 21, somewhere in that range. Old head had been down for 20 years. So anybody he might have known, he didn't know anymore. So there's a part of me looking at the story or hearing about the story, maybe he genuinely didn't know who this lady was and he was just reaching out to her. Maybe he got scared and wanted to double check something. I don't know what happened. But what I do know what happened next is that the young man that he was in a relationship with put him on the phone, three-way phone call. And I remember because we were playing poker right there, and the phone that we play, or table we play poker at, is right there by the phones. Why? We can get to the phone, we can run back to the poker table. We drink our coffee, we get back to the phone. It was just our spot right there. And you're not ear hustling, but a lot of times you hear the conversations. And I remember the two walking out. And I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but it's so crazy. They're getting on the phone and a young man says, hey, this my mama, you could talk to her. The old head gets on the phone and probably not even, 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, you just hear him screaming. And when he starts screaming, he's looking at the young man. He says, you're my son. You're my son. I've been messing with my son. He said a few other things. The young man started to break down, crying, sobbing. It was... I don't want to use it. It was a horrible moment.
Prison, right? It was one of them nights that I couldn't sleep. I'm up late watching TV and shit. So out of nowhere, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna go smoke me a cigarette. By the way, I don't smoke cigarettes no more. I been gave that shit up in 2018. Now, I was in a dorm at the time, right? So whenever niggas want to smoke cigarettes, they will always go to the bathroom and smoke a cigarette. Now, before I decided to go, I looked at the time because they do count every hour. And I didn't want to be up in the bathroom during count time. So I look, I'm like, okay, they finna come in probably like 10 minutes. So I'm gonna wait for them to do the count and then I'm gonna go smoke my cigarette. So anyways, I'm laying on the bed, right? And I'm watching TV. So in my peripheral, I could see the police walk up to my bed and do count and then walk off. So I see him walk off, but I'm not really paying attention still because I'm all up into my show. So finally I hear the motherfucking door close and I'm like, okay, count over is good. Now remind you, when they do count, it's always 2 officers that walk and do the count. But sometimes I guess one will be caught up, so they'll do it one at a time, but back to back. But since I wasn't really paying attention and only seeing the police in my peripheral, I thought it was 2 officers, but it was only 1. So anyways, I jump off the top bunk and I walk through the dorm towards the bathroom. Majority everybody sleep by this time, but it's still a few niggas up watching TV. So anyways, I get to the bathroom, right? And how the bathroom is set up, on one side, it's a whole bunch of toilets, right? But they got dividers in between each toilet, so you can't see the nigga shitting next to you. Now, right across from the toilets is the showers, but there's a wall that come up to like your waist. So the only way to see who's sitting in the toilet stalls is to walk all the way into the shower. So anyways, I go to the back toilet against the wall, right? Because that's furthest from the front of the bathroom, so no police can smell the smoke. So, I go to the stall, I sit down, you feel me, and I light my cigarette and I start smoking. So I'm just smoking, you feel me? It's on the toilet, right? Just hitting that shit. So in the middle of while I'm smoking, a nigga end up saying, fuck it, I'm finna crack one off. Based on it was late, wasn't nobody finna come take no showers, and I'm at the back of the stall. So boom, I'm like, fuck it, you feel me? I start beating my shit. But I'm still smoking while I'm doing it, so I got the cigarette in one hand and I'm beating off with my other. But that shit was kind of dry, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, fuck it, I pull out a packet of grape jelly and I go to work. So I'm beating off with grape jelly. Nah, I'm fucking with y'all. I wasn't using no fucking grape jelly though. But anyways, the whole time while I'm doing it, I'm looking down, right? I don't know what the fuck told me to look up, but I end up looking up. And when I looked up, all I seen was the police staring at me from in the shower, because he right across from me in the shower. Out of nowhere, that nigga like, put the meat down! Put the meat down right now! I ain't gonna lie, I froze up. I ain't know what to do. I'm just sitting there, meat in one hand, cigarette in the other, like this. Nah, I'm fucking with y'all. He was screaming that shit. So anyways, we both looking at each other like, what the fuck? That's when he finally say something like, man, what you doing? I ignore the fact that he caught me beating off and just went straight to the smoke. I'm like, shit, I'm smoking a cigarette. He like, why you smoking? I'm like, shit, I had to smoke. Now, I guess he could sense that I was embarrassed, and he was pretty much embarrassed for me, I guess, right? So instead of him writing me up, that nigga just like, go back to your bunk, man.
Talk about horror stories that you've heard. Well, let me tell you one of the most horrendous stories that I witnessed while I was there. You know what I'm saying? One of the most horrendous events that I witnessed while in prison. Okay. So you had to get up in the morning. You had to get yourself in compliance. You had to make your bed. You had to, brush your teeth, wash your face, normal things. But then you would have to stand out in front of your bed and they would do a walkthrough and, check everybody's living area. And once, they done that, if you had a job, you had to go to work. And it wasn't really a way to get out of having a job. Like when you got to the prison, you had to go to job board and they gave you a job. So one day, this older lady, she was probably about 50, somebody's grandma, you know what I'm saying? And it didn't matter if I was in prison or not. If somebody was older than me, I respected them because that's how I was raised. You just don't disrespect your elders. But this lady was like a little older white lady, you know what I'm saying? Probably no bigger than about 120 pounds soaking wet. She was about 5'2", so she was short, you know what I'm saying? And the lady didn't feel well that day. She was laying up in her bed or whatever, and everybody knew she didn't feel well. So when the guard came in, because when she didn't report to work, when she worked in the kitchen, and when she didn't report, they got to looking for the woman. So he comes to the dorm, he finds the lady laying in her bed. He's like, "Where you supposed to be at?" And she was like, "Well, I didn't feel good, sir, so I'm not gonna make it today. I'm not feeling good at all. Like, I feel really, really bad." And he was like, "It doesn't matter. That's your job. You have to go." You know what I'm saying? And so he proceeds to go off on the woman. Well, she didn't get smart with him. She didn't act crazy or anything. Like I said, she was a little older lady. She didn't feel good. Like, bro, come on. You're human. You know what I'm saying? Like, some days you just ain't feeling the shit. It's a job you get paid for. And sometimes you don't want to come in, but you want her to go to work every day, whether she feeling good or not. And she ain't even get paid. Baby, buh. But anyway, so, she didn't get smart with him or nothing, but he just grabbed this woman off of her top bunk and just slammed her on the floor. Like, I mean, literally, this a little bitty woman, and this man is like a linebacker, like the big dude from the movie Blindside. He is humongous. Do you hear me? Like, I wouldn't even try this nigga. I'm rolling up on him with a 9 milli, and that's the only thing. And we ain't finna fight or nothing like that. He is huge. Oh, Lord, no. But he snatched the woman off the bed. She hit the floor, and he just started beating and kicking, and I'm like, wow. You know what I'm saying? So everybody freaking out. You feel me? So one of the inmates run up to the shift officer or whatever, gets him. I can't remember exactly how the woman ended up getting help, but they locked her up in a cell and locked her up like she had assaulted the officer, right? Well, everybody that's in prison is not thrown away. Some of us still have family. This woman's son came up to the prison, baby. He was at the gate. He was ready. Do you hear me? He was ready to tear it up. And them people ended up getting a lawsuit behind that.